First of all, Mrs. Berkman and Mrs. Furman, after you discovered that a presenter representing Juul gave a closed assembly at your children's school, you researched the issue and formed an advocacy group to inform parents around the country about the dangers of adolescent e-cigarette use. Thank you for your continued advocacy. As a parent of 3 young children myself, including a teenager, I was shocked to hear Juul had access to children without the presence of teachers or administrators and without parental permission. Juul continues to partner with youth organizations across the country, so it's important to understand what outreach looks like on their part. Mrs. Berkman and Mrs. Furman, I'd like to ask a couple questions of your sons, if that's okay.
Yes.
Philip and Caleb, can you please come to the table for a couple minutes? I'd like to first address Caleb. Caleb, what grades were you and Philip in the year of the Juul presentation?
9th grade.
Can you just speak directly into the microphone?
9th grade.
Thank you. What were students told about the presentation before it began?
We were told that we were having a mental health / addiction seminar that we have 3 times a year, and the teachers are told to leave the room, so it's a safe space for kids to talk.
Did most of your classmates believe Juul was safe prior to the presentation?
I think many kids were already Juuling and had their doubts to if it was safe, but I think a lot of kids still thought it was possibly dangerous.
Did the presenter ever mention his connection to Juul, and were your teachers in the room when he spoke?
He did mention his connection to Juul, and my teachers were not in the room when he spoke.
Did the presenter ever say that Juul was safe?
Yes.
Did the presenter call Juul, quote-unquote, totally safe more than once?
Yes.
What impact did those, quote-unquote, totally safe comments have on your classmates, some of whom may have already started vaping?
For my classmates who were already vaping, it was a sigh of relief because now they were able to vape without any concern.
Were there kids who had never been Juuling that were more likely to try after hearing it was, quote-unquote, totally safe?
I can't say for sure, but I believe that after this meeting, kids were more inclined to vape because now they thought it was just a flavor device that didn't have any harmful substances in it.
You and Philip approached the presenter when the assembly concluded. What motivated you to even approach him in the first place?
I believe the presenter was sending mixed messages by saying Juul is totally safe and following up every totally safe statement with, but we don't want you as customers. And I saw a mixed message being sent, and I believe that the presenter was playing on the rebellious side of teens, where when teens are told not to do something, they are more likely to do it.
Philip, let me ask you a couple questions. What was your experience speaking to the presenter?
So we went up and talked to him, and Caleb asked a question about what can you do if your friend is addicted to nicotine.
Philip, were you addicted to Juul at the time of this presentation?
I was.
And when Caleb asked the presenter what he should do if he had a friend that was addicted to nicotine, was Caleb referring to you?
He was.
How did the presenter answer Caleb's question of how he could help his nicotine-addicted friend, namely you?
Since Caleb was not specific on what kind of nicotine he was addicted to, whether it was an e-cigarette or cigarettes, the speaker thought that he was talking about cigarettes, and he said that he should mention Juul to his friend, and because that's a safer alternative than smoking cigarettes, and it would be better for the kid to use.
So let me get this straight. He wanted you to switch from a combustible cigarette to Juul.
Yeah.
How did the presenter demonstrate the product to you?
He didn't use it, but he did take it out and show it to us.
Okay, this is very disturbing behavior, to say the least. A person connected to Juul pulled out a Juul device to demonstrate its safety to teenagers and then lied about the product being, quote-unquote, totally safe. Did he say anything else about whether the government had approved Juul?
He mentioned that the FDA was about to come out and say that Juul was 99% safer than cigarettes, and he said that that would happen very soon, and that it was in FDA approval while the talk was going on.
Thank you, Caleb and Philip. Let me ask Dorian, Philip's mother, to say a couple of words here. Dorian, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Your son, Philip, just stated he was addicted to Juul.
Yes.
How did his addiction impact your family?
It was difficult, and at first we didn't understand what was going on. As a young 14-year-old, he was interested in so many different things, from surfing to cooking to his little sister. And I started to find these flash drives and these green plastic caps in his pockets, and I didn't really know what it was at first. So he kept saying, you know, they belonged to a friend, and we'd have fights about it, and I figured out what it was because I Googled the name on the side, and it was difficult. He changed kind of overnight. He started spending a lot of time in his room in the dark. He became moody. We had a very contentious relationship. I became very suspicious, obviously, and I think he didn't really understand what was going on himself, and neither did we.
Thank you, Dorian.
Thank you.
Let me now recognize Ranking Member Cloud for 5 minutes of questioning.